Well, good morning and welcome here to a special Fairbanks edition of our Sunday morning. Pray that you guys are warm and having a great morning. Thank you for tuning in and putting me on your TV, your phone, your computer, wherever I'm at. So glad to be with you guys this beautiful morning. As of course you know, we had canceled our in-person church service today. Where we're located and where many of our residents are located, the roads are just still a little too hazardous. So we are looking forward to coming back in person as a whole church this next coming Sunday, where we will continue, of course, our Discovering Gospel Centeredness series in the book of John. So today, of course, as the winter storm has just kind of made a little bit of a disruption in our plans, I wanted to take this opportunity to just kind of put our John series on the shelf just for the day and share with you just a morning devotion as you are just getting the day started and having just gotten the day started probably within the last couple of hours. So if you have your Bible with me, of course, I would love for you to turn to Psalm chapter 46. Those are the two things you're going to need this morning. You're going to need a Bible and you're going to need a cup of coffee. And if you're going to tell me, Cody, I'm not a coffee drinker, then we're going to pray for you. You know, that's something that needs to be get fixed real quick. Tea and coffee, that's a guaranteed in heaven. But more importantly, we will be here in Psalms chapter 46 in our Bible. So turn on your phone, put the book up. Whichever you need, but get to Psalm 46. And as you're doing so, really we're going to be looking at this entire psalm for just a few moments. And we're going to spend a little bit of time together this morning. Not necessarily worshiping together, but we're going to give praise to the Lord and just take this devotion. I think it'll really apply well with the weekend and kind of where we have been in the last couple of days. For many of us, especially as we're tuning in today. So here in Psalms 46, we are looking at really two words that has really come into play in the last couple of days, really the last few days with the winter storm that we had. And this two words that we're looking at and kind of focusing on is be still, I don't know about you, but when Thursday night came for us over here, the snow just kept coming and coming and coming. And it seemed like from the time that I woke up to the time I went to sleep, all it did was snow. And, really it just got higher and higher and higher. And, of course, I had to go out a couple of times to pave away and make sure the house was going to still be in functioning order. But it really put all of our activities, all of my plans, all of my scheduled appointments at a standstill. I was being still the entire day. In fact, for several hours from Wednesday into Friday, for a few days, I was being still with my family. We were home stuck and enjoying each other's presence to the best of our ability, as much as you can, trying to entertain a 1.5-year-old with 3 rooms and the same toys for 48 hours. We enjoyed that challenge, to say the least. But in these be still moments, I kind of took the time that I had and meditated on the thought of how do we find purpose in the be still moments of our life. When the storms come and puts us in the home stuck, when life just gets complicated and we're stuck, we're face planted, we're rear planted, we're not going anywhere. What do? How do we find perspective in those be still moments? And one of the most memorable miracles that I'm sure you know, as you've heard all your life, whether you've been saved for many years or not, it's really a predominant story of when the disciples were with Jesus and they were on the Sea of Galilee. And of course, Jesus found the right opportunity to fall asleep, and I guess the disciples thought otherwise. And of course, this storm came and really disrupted their plans. A calm journey turned into a really disastrous journey. And of course, the disciples were great men of God, right? I mean, they weren't fearful at all. No, we understand that as soon as they did, they ran to Jesus, shook him up, probably grabbed him by his shoulders and just started shaking him and said, "Hey, we're about to sink." And of course, if you look in your Bible, you don't have to go there right now, but if you want to go there in a little while afterwards, you can look at it. Jesus woke up and he said 3 words to the storm. He said, "Peace, be still." And the storm calmed. Be still. A powerful 2 words found in a few places in the Bible, and really has the same attitude in all the places that we find it. I think at times, especially in America, our lives are constantly being busy. I've been around in a few states in the last 10 years of my life in ministry, and no matter where I've been and the people I've met, there's always a sense of busyness wherever I've been and whoever I met. People just seem to be more and more busy. It seems like in yesteryear, we ran a little bit slower, time went a little bit slower, but boy, in this day and age of technology and hundreds of channels on the TV and so many games and activities and extracurricular activities and family, it just gets out of control with the busyness that we have. So what do we do when life stops and we're told, just like that storm on Galilee, to be still? How do we react? What do we do to make that an advantage rather than a disadvantage? Well, in Psalm 46, we're going to find the same be still attitude conveyed. This is where we will stay, and hopefully my prayer for you this morning, it will help you, it will encourage you, and the title of our devotion, Finding Perspective in the Be Still Moments of Life. That's the title of the devotion today, Finding Perspective in the Be Still Moments of our life. Well, if you're there at Psalm 46, you'll notice that this is a short psalm. I didn't take you to Psalm 119. Many of you probably would have turned me off if I went to Psalm 119, because we'd be here for a couple hours. But this psalm is a rather short psalm, and it's broken up in 3 stanzas. If you looked at verse number 3, and I believe verse number 7, and verse number 11, all end with the word Selah, a beautiful Hebrew word meaning most praise to the Father. And in this song, it is a ending, it is a break, it is a pause. And so really in Psalm 46, we find 3 different stanzas. And we're going to look at all these 3 stanzas and find really how these 3 stanzas gives us and helps us finding perspective in 3 different ways in the be still moments of our life. Well, let's go ahead and read verse number 1 here from verse number 3. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble, and therefore we will not fear, even though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though its waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with its swelling. Selah. So here's the first psalm, and really we find the first 3 words, the first 4 words being our anthem of the entire Psalm 46. God is our refuge. That phrase is repeated 3 different times in these short 11 verses. God is our refuge. A little bit in different ways, as you'll notice here in a little bit, but the same thought, that God is our refuge. You know, life is not ours to live alone. Did you know that? Many of us find helpmeets and family that we stay close with, and close friends that might as well be family, right? Life is not one to be lived alone. No matter how often or how introverted you are, we are social creatures. We need social interaction. And one of the things I find in life is that I am constantly needing to remind myself is that we are just pilgrims on this journey. This world is not our permanent home, and one that I'm very glad of. You turn on the news today and you read maybe the newspaper this morning, you'll notice that this world isn't really a 5-star rating hotel for us to dwell in. There's problems in this world. There's problems in our lives. There's problems in our body. We're always hurting. We're always murmuring about something. It always seems like there needs to be a solution about something. Am I right? This world is constantly having difficulties, and one that, even in the geological sense, we find in the first 3 verses that telling us of all the earth problems that have. I mean, my goodness, just these last 4 or 5 days helps prove, sometimes the weather isn't always our friend. It seems like all of America in the last week or so just got dumped with snow. I mean, from the East Coast to all the Midwest and the southern states a couple of weeks ago, it just seems like winter has really hit hard, and many Americans and hundreds of thousands of folks are living in those be still moments, especially in the last month or so. And we find that the earth is constantly groaning. Natural disasters are constantly happening. So in this life of pilgrimage, where do we get our refuge when the very world that we live in is constantly in tumult? Well, the first 4 words is a great reminder that no matter where your life is, no matter where you find yourself today, all I see is this beautiful little round camera that I'm staring at. But where you are, I can tell you right now, those 4 beautiful words, that God is your refuge. No matter where you're at, no matter how life has been going, you're the pilgrim, I'm the pilgrim, we're all pilgrims on this road of life. And when we need a break, when we need some safety, when we need to take a stop, God said that He will be our refuge. It's a beautiful illustration. One just a few centuries ago, the great reformer Martin Luther actually loved this psalm. History tells us that when problems came in Martin Luther's life, and if you ever read about it, you'll know problems came quite often. In fact, he even lost his first wife, I believe, and many times in his ministry, obstacles came and came and came. And when problems came in his life, history tells us that he would go to Psalms 46 and sing this psalm. It's a beautiful psalm, and it constantly reminds us that when we are put into the be still moments of life, when we don't know how to go forward, when we physically can't go forward, or mentally or spiritually go forward, God tells us to stop, be still, and seek Him as our refuge, to dwell in Him, to draw closer to Him. The Bible tells us when we draw near to Him, He will draw near to us. He's a constant presence. And number 2, in our second stanzas here, we find that He is also an everlasting supply. Read with me in verse 4. There's a river whose streams shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. The nations raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered His voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. Here's our phrase, the God of Jacob is our refuge. God is an everlasting supply to us. This beautiful stanza in the second stanza of Psalm 46 kind of gives a little bit of a physical picture that the ancient Jews would see, especially from the author of the Psalm 46, which we'll get to in just a moment. But if you know, and if you've ever looked at Jerusalem, if you've ever read about Jerusalem, Jerusalem is a unique city for many different reasons. One of its uniqueness is that it's one of the only ancient capitals of a nation that was built away from a river. Jerusalem, where it's located, does not have a close, approximate natural river supply or water supply by natural means. In fact, if you were ever in Israel or you ever looked at any documentaries about Israel, you'll find that Jerusalem is actually located on a hill and a mountain, as the Old Testament would say. And there was no river located there. And so the Jews had to figure out a way to keep bringing water to the city. because they didn't have city water just coming and turning on the faucet and out comes the water. And the well was in short supply, living on top of a mountain, of course. And so there was a teen, one that Bible scholars believe wrote this Psalm 46. And this teen was a wise teen. His name was Hezekiah. And he had an idea. He said, you know what? I'm going to take some water out of the Sea of Gibron, and I'm going to put a ravine, and I'm going to make it go right into the city. And by man-made means, there was a river, there was a water supply that went into Jerusalem. This is, of course, kind of a great allusion to where God says that He is the river in our life as well. Much like Jerusalem didn't have a natural means of water, oftentimes in our life, we necessarily don't have a natural means of supply spiritually. What do you mean, Pastor? Well, if you woke up this morning, you looked at yourself in the mirror, you'll see your number one enemy, the flesh that constantly is at war with the spirit, the Bible tells us. This old flesh that constantly fails us, that huffs and puffs and groans when we try to make it move, and is sore when we hit the end of our bed or the end of a counter. This body is frail. This body is not one that we wish to be in for many, many years and a very long time. This is just a decaying body. And in fact, mentally, it's one that is constantly at war with us. Sometimes the flesh is at war with the spirit, as the Bible tells us, and tells us that there's times that we try to come to a point where we don't often want to read our Bible, and prayer seems like a distraction, and even in our own life, outside of being close to God, I don't know about you, but my mind constantly forgets things that I wish it didn't. I'm always forgetting things that I wish I didn't. And so this flesh is in need of some fixing up. And you know that I love that HGTV show, Fisher Upper. You know, Chip and Joanne Gaines, they go in a house, and boy, they sure make it beautiful, don't they? God tells us that as the river goes through Jerusalem, He supplies in our life as well. I'm reminded of that story of Jesus with the Samaritan woman, and they were talking about that water, and Jesus said, hey, I'll give you some water that you will never be thirsty again. And that Samaritan woman looked at Jesus, as much as we probably all would, and thought, well, where is it? And Jesus, of course, said, come to me and draw from me, and you will never thirst again. Boy, isn't that the truth? It seems like in these be still moments, we just look for things to do. I know, especially in the last couple of days in our house, when we were stuck, especially on Thursday, boy, it just seemed like there was chores galore. I mean, things needed to be picked up, places needed to be rearranged, things needed to be finally tidied up that we've just kept off. And of course, a 16-month-old is the cleanest little baby you've ever seen, right? No, not really. It just seems like we find things that we need to constantly be doing, things that we just tell ourselves, hey, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And even in our life, we find things to just fill our life up, don't we? Entertainment and activities and chores to keep us busy, to keep us active. Well, the Bible reminds us in those be still moments that God is our everlasting supply. That there will come a time when we try to find things in the world to fill our lives up, that it's only a temporary joy, that it's only a temporary band-aid, only a temporary salve to the everlasting, to that wound that needs that everlasting supply to it, to that hunger that needs that everlasting food, to that thirst that only the everlasting water can supply. And that is, of course, where we find that God shall help us in our time of need when we come to Him. And of course, in the ending of the Psalm 6, it's talking about, if we believe Hezekiah wrote it, his battle with the Assyria. And we see that especially in the last stanzas. So let's wrap up here in the third stanza as we read Psalm 46, verse 8 through 11. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolations in the earth, who makes war cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow, He cuts the spear in two, He burns the chariot in fire. What's those two words? Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. And so we find here that the Bible's telling us, that God is telling us to simply do that, to be still. In the be still moments, we should be reminded especially that our life is not our own. We can't add one more day to our life if we even wanted to. Only He can, right? And we find that He is the author, and we're just the paper that lies there ready to be written on. He is the one that tells us how our life will go. He is the one that has everything in place, that knows exactly where everything's in place, and we're just the pilgrim along the road, as I've been referenced to earlier just a few moments ago. I tell you what, talking about paper and talking about messages, isn't it funny? I'm sure you've done this before. You probably have texted somebody, and I know I have done this, and you texted somebody in your haste, and you're trying to put a message on there, and you click send, and you let it go. And then you realize after maybe somebody responded back to you or you reread that message, you put something in there that made absolutely no sense. You were pushing the wrong button, and especially in this smartphone era, it just puts a whole different word in there. Prayerfully not a bad word, right? Boy, it seems like sometimes that happens more and more and more the busier we get. And, sometimes that's how we can be with the Lord. The Lord is writing out that message in our life. The Lord is trying to put us in the path that He wants us to go, and sometimes our free will can just be like that smartphone and say, oh, you mean what? You want me to do this, right? Oh, you want me to put this word in there instead of the word that you wanted. And if we're not careful, just like sometimes we've seen and experienced, that one wrong word or those two wrong words can change and mess up that entire message. Can even offend somebody that we didn't otherwise want to offend. This is what we find ourselves in. The be still moments remind us that we're not the author of our life. No matter what you could have done, no matter what you could have done, there was no way, unless you really try and come up with some contraption, there's literally no way you could stop that winter storm from coming and cause all the mess that it did over these last few days. God is the author. We are just but the paper. And so how do we find perspective in these be still moments? Well, we must know the one who's our refuge. In the be still moments, we're reminded to take refuge, to not constantly be busy, as we Americans so often are, and to make sure where we're getting our supply from. In the be still moment is a great time to evaluate our life and see what's all filled up there. Are we filling up our life with temporary junk? Are we filling up our life with things that will only satisfy us for a little while? Are we filling up our life with something that may go from us? There are people who center their life on their kids and spouses and family, and unfortunately we know that this life is but temporal, and even the people we surround ourselves will only be here for a little while. But the one person who will constantly supply us, the one person who will constantly be with us, He is the one who says He has the everlasting water, is of course our dear Lord Jesus Himself, right? And in the be still moments, we must understand that He is the author. That ultimately, really, we have little to no control over our life. We can't add one more day to it if we even wanted to. Our life is in His hands. So in the be still moments, we know that we can pause and understand that our life is but by the grace of God, for the glory of God. Psalm says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted among the earth." Friends, who are you living for today? Are you living for yourself? Are you living for your family? Are you living for your children that you're leaving behind? Or are you living for the one that says He will be exalted? Not you, not me, not us. He will be exalted. So maybe we can take this time this morning and be still and know that He is God. A great, great encouragement for us, a great hope in the time of our need, and a great thought as we reevaluate our compass and reevaluate our life. Well, hey, I hope this message, I hope this devotion was an encouragement to you, and I hope you do, in the be still moments of your morning today, still continue to find perspective in the be still moments of your life. God bless you and God be with you. And I can't wait to see you again, hopefully next Sunday, especially in person, right here at Fairbanks.